Okay, hi y'all. Welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is, what are these called? Diagnosing and Dismantling Society. If I have those switched, I'm sorry. It's been a minute. Today we're going to talk about, I'm wearing the correct outfit to talk about obedience, defiance, disorder. God. A disorder in children marked by defiant or disobedient behavior to authority figures. I never grew out of this, but it wasn't a disorder when I was growing up. The cause of oppositional defiant disorder is unknown, but it likely involves a combination of genetic and environmental factors. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Okay, I have a lot to say about this, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to say it. Obedience, defiance, disorder. One thing about the DSM is that my thesis, I wrote about how it's used for social control. Obviously, that's why we're doing this fucking project. So with that in mind, that being the lens in which we are looking at obedience, defiance, disorder. Alright, let's talk about human nature a little bit. Okay, so we're going to keep in mind that the DSM is written for social control. From the ages 0 to 7 is when a child is most likely to be brainwashed, indoctrinated into a system. Their entire foundation for this life is set in those first 7 years. So within those first 7 years, it says a child in here, because what they're doing is, remember that, I have so many ideas. This is bullshit, quite frankly, and I'm proving it's bullshit by what we're talking about. Human nature is, when you are told not to do something, like basic ass survival, not even survival, it's just human nature, to push back with resistance when told direction that you are either curious. Think about Curious George, the show Curious George. Fucking monkey stresses the fuck out of me. But he's always getting into trouble. He's always curious, and so he's learning, but because he doesn't know about it, that learning is messy or dangerous, or, the curiosity, the saying, curiosity killed the cat, right? This childlike wonder is being criminalized and pathologized as obedience, defiance, disorder. Obedient, defiance, disorder, whatever. Bullshit. ODD is what the acronym for this is ODD, which is ironic as fuck. Because what they're doing within this is removing oddities, removing the originality, the uniqueness within children, because it's human nature. When you are told not to do something, that spikes your curiosity, because you're like, why can't I do that? Well, now I'm going to do it just to prove a point. This is human nature. We all have that within us, and it exhibits itself a lot in those first 7 years because kids are learning about everything. So okay, let's look at symptoms. Symptoms. It requires a medical. Don't diagnose your kids with this shit. Man, knock it off. Let them fucking wonder. Aggression, antisocial behavior, impulsivity, irritability, screaming or self-harm, mood, anger, and anxiety. Yeah, because they want to know, because they want to explore. And when you're putting, invisible, or when you're putting these expectations on children that adults have to, categories that adults have to, live within, right? Like when you tell a child, within reason, you tell a child, teaching Niall about the drill is a good example of this, because his dad was like, he's way too young. And I'm like, you just think he's too young because you're not here to watch him grow, bitch. Fuck you. No, he's not too young. He's showing interest in this, and the thing that we can do as that is let him safely explore that, so that it becomes a talent, it becomes a skill, it becomes, something he knows. And at the age of 5, learning how to use a drill, it's like riding a bike. It's like potty training. It's like everything else. When you learn something within these first 7 years, it's going to stick with you. Having a child that knows how to use a drill, do you know what he's going to be able to do with that skill? I mean, it doesn't take a lot to learn how to use a drill, but because it's something that he learned at this age, and my initial reaction that day was no. And then I was like, it was mostly because I was just in the middle of a project. Because I knew that teaching him about that was going to make me, I'm going to need to be present for this. But I finished that up, or I walked away from that because I thought, no. And that's another part of decolonizing ourselves as parents or as adults in children's lives. They are not defiant. They are curious, and they want the space to explore safely. And that's our job, to make that happen. But within capitalism, it's easier to throw a disorder and medicate that out of them, because that keeps everyone in line. That's part of the machine, right? If a parent isn't present or a teacher isn't present to facilitate that, then we're going to say no, right? I shared that in my own personal experience. And that's part of, checking ourselves, acknowledging the ridiculousness of these things. I'm thinking also about pathological demand avoidance, but we can do our own, we'll do our own thing on that, because that's something that I think Niall might have, but it's gotten a lot better because I think that we just throw out arbitrary no's all the time, right? Because we're used to hearing no, because we know as adults that things don't go that way. And a lot of parents are like, well, the real world won't do this and the real world won't do that. But we get to create our world, right? And so if we want to decolonize away from this system, if we want to provide our children with, avenues of learning, avenues of self-expression, then instead of looking at them like defiant hoodlums, we could be like, you know what, maybe this is about me. Maybe this is about me saying no too much or not being present enough. And again, within context of capitalism, I understand that that's hard, which is why, I'm pushing for folks to leave capitalism, liberate yourself from the matrix, find alternatives to ways of life, reconnect to, human nature, environment. We have to abolish capitalism and the DSM, and these ridiculous diagnoses are part of the problem. We know that they want our children brainwashed. We know that these systems do not honor our children. If they did, they would have put legislation in around guns. They wouldn't be bombing children. They wouldn't be starving children. They wouldn't be raping children, okay? These systems that create this DSM and this defiance disorder, that's what they're doing to our children. They're preying on our children. There's a war on children at a global scale. Remember what RFK said in his autism talk, children are our greatest resource, which is why they need to fall in line. Because without the children holding up this system, if we liberate our children from this system in that first 7 years, if we don't allow them to be indoctrinated the way that the system wants them to be indoctrinated, yes, they will be recognized as defiant, but as adults, we are the shield between the system and them, and it is our responsibility to provide that space for our children so that they aren't labeled as criminals, they aren't labeled as defiant, they aren't labeled as difficult or impossible or other things. Children have no right hearing those things about themselves. There's absolutely, I can't think of any context in which a child could hear those things about themselves and grow into a good person. They're going to internalize that forever, and their entire life will be based on that. They will have addiction problems. They will have cycles of abuse. whether they're the abuser or the abusee, they will be caught in cycles of incarceration more than likely. If you make a child believe that they are defiant to that degree, if you medicate them, if you medicate the curiosity and wonder and joy out of them, then yeah, you're upholding the system, but to what degree and for why? Because if you brought that child into the world, your responsibility is to guide them. You're a shepherd. They are not an extension of you. And if you're triggered when they push back, that's your responsibility, not your child. That's my take. Complete bullshit. Have a good one.